Amanda sat in the back of the classroom, her eyes welling up with tears as she stared at the math problem on the board. Her mind was miles away from the numbers and equations that were supposed to be her main focus. Her thoughts were consumed by the chaos that had become her home life. Her mother's screams echoed in her mind, and the slamming of doors was a constant background noise to her internal monologue. She felt a gentle pat on her shoulder, and she looked up to see Mr. Peterson, her math teacher, with a look of genuine concern etched on his face. "Everything okay, Amanda?" he asked softly. She sniffled and nodded, not trusting her voice to respond. She had always been a strong student, eager to learn and participate, but the last few weeks had been a relentless battle. Her grades had begun to slip, and it was clear to anyone who knew her that something was wrong. Mr. Peterson was a good teacher, kind, patient, and understanding. He was the only person she felt she could confide in, and the weight of her situation grew too heavy to bear alone. "Do you want to talk about it?" he offered, his voice low enough to keep their conversation private amidst the rustling of papers and the murmur of other students. Amanda hesitated, biting her bottom lip. She glanced around the room before leaning closer to him. "It's my mom and her boyfriend," she whispered. "They fight all the time, and it's too much." Mr. Peterson's expression grew even more concerned. "That sounds really tough. Is there anything I can do to help?" "I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling. "I just need to get away from it all." He paused for a moment, considering her words. "How about you come over to my place tonight? We can talk more, and I can help you catch up on the material you've missed." Her heart skipped a beat at the suggestion. It was a gesture of kindness she hadn't expected, and she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe talking to him would help. Maybe he could give her the guidance she desperately needed. "Okay," she murmured. The bell rang, and the class began to disperse. Mr. Peterson handed her a tissue and a small slip of paper with his address. "Come by around 7. We'll order some pizza and make it a study session." Amanda took the paper and nodded, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. As she packed up her things and left the classroom, she couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement mixed with trepidation. The idea of spending time alone with him in his home was both comforting and exhilarating. That evening, Amanda arrived at Mr. Peterson's door, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She was greeted by the warm glow of the porch light and the faint smell of something delicious cooking inside. He opened the door with a welcoming smile, and she stepped into the comfort of his living room, feeling the tension of her day begin to melt away. They talked for hours about math and life, about her dreams and her fears. He listened intently, offering words of wisdom and encouragement that she hadn't heard from anyone else. He had made a simple meal of spaghetti, and they sat at the kitchen table, twirling noodles around their forks, sharing stories and laughter. As the night grew late, the conversation grew more personal. He spoke of his own past, of lost loves and missed opportunities. Amanda found herself drawn to his vulnerability, his strength in the face of loneliness. He was a single man in his late 30s, with no family in town, and a job that consumed most of his time. "I've been pretty lonely too," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. His eyes searched hers, filled with understanding. He reached across the table and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "You're not alone, Amanda." The air grew thick with unspoken emotion, and she felt herself leaning closer to him. The intensity of his gaze was like a magnet, pulling her in. Before she knew what was happening, their faces were inches apart, and she could feel the warmth of his breath against the tip of her nose. "Mr. Peterson," she started, but the words caught in her throat as he leaned in to kiss her. The gesture was soft, tentative, but filled with a passion that surprised her. For a brief moment, she was lost in the warmth of his touch, the taste of his lips. But reality crashed back in, and she pulled away, her eyes wide with shock. "What are we doing?" she gasped, her cheeks flaming with embarrassment. He looked equally surprised, his hand dropping to the table with a thud. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice thick with regret. "I didn't mean to." But she was already out of her chair, her books clutched to her chest. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I have to go." "Amanda, wait!" he called after her, but she was already out the door, running down the street, the cool night air slapping her in the face. She didn't look back. The next day, she avoided eye contact with him in class, focusing instead on the numbers that had once brought her solace. She knew she had to tell someone about what happened, but the thought of speaking those words out loud made her stomach churn. Her friends wouldn't understand, and her mother was too consumed with her own drama to care. As the week dragged on, the tension between them grew palpable. He tried to approach her several times, but she always had an excuse, a quick retreat. She felt trapped, torn between the need for his help and the fear of what had transpired. One evening, as she was walking home from school, Mr. Peterson pulled up alongside her in his car. She tensed, ready to run, but he called out gently, "Amanda, please, let's talk." With a heavy sigh, she stopped and approached the car, leaning in the open window. His eyes searched hers, filled with remorse and longing. "I crossed a line," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you or make you uncomfortable." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she looked at him, the weight of the past week crushing her. "I just want to forget it ever happened," she choked out. He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Okay," he said softly. "We'll move forward. I'm still here to help you, in any way I can." "Thank you," she whispered, "but I think it's best if I find another way." He nodded again, his jaw clenched in pain. "I understand," he said, his voice cracking. "Just remember, I'm here if you need me." The next few weeks passed in a blur for Amanda. She threw herself into her schoolwork, determined to regain the sense of control that had been shattered by her mother's tumultuous relationship and the confusing incident with Mr. Peterson. But no matter how hard she tried to focus, her thoughts kept drifting back to that night, to the way his eyes had searched hers, the way his lips had felt against hers. The whispers in the hallways grew louder, rumors spreading like wildfire about what had happened between them. She could feel the judgment in the eyes of her classmates, the knowing looks from her teachers. It was a secret that she wished she could take back, a moment of weakness that had changed everything. One evening, as she was walking home from the library, she heard the unmistakable sound of her mother's shrill voice, intermingled with the deep, angry tones of her boyfriend. The fight grew more intense, and before she could even knock on the door, it flew open, and she was met with the sight of her mother, bruised and crying. "He hit me," she sobbed, clutching at Amanda's shirt. "He said if I don't stop seeing you, he'll—" She trailed off, her voice too shaky to continue. Amanda felt a white-hot rage surge through her. She knew she had to get her mother out of there, to protect her from the monster that had invaded their lives. But where could they go? There was nowhere else. In a moment of desperation, she thought of Mr. Peterson. He had said he was there to help her, hadn't he? And she had nowhere else to turn. With trembling hands, she dialed his number, her heart racing as she waited for him to answer. "Hello?" His voice was tentative, cautious. "It's me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help." There was a brief pause before he spoke. "Of course, Amanda. What's wrong?" "My mom's boyfriend hit her again," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't stay here anymore. Can we come to your house?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Come over right now. I'll be waiting." They arrived at his house, her mother's face swollen and her eyes red from crying. Mr. Peterson looked at them both with a mix of concern and something else, something Amanda couldn't quite identify. He ushered them inside and listened as she recounted the night's events, his expression growing darker with every word. "I'm so sorry," he said finally. "Let me help you both." Her mother was too distraught to speak, So Amanda took the lead, explaining what they had endured for the past few months. Peterson's eyes never left hers, and she could feel the warmth of his gaze, the silent promise of support. As the night wore on, they sat together on the couch, her mother curled up in a blanket, her eyes closed in an uneasy sleep. Amanda felt the exhaustion of the last few weeks catch up with her, and she leaned into the warmth of his side. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. "You don't have to thank me," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. "You're safe here." The comfort of his embrace was like a balm to her soul. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. But it was a hope tinged with the guilt of her earlier rejection, the memory of his kiss still burning on her lips. "Mr. Peterson," she began, her voice barely above a murmur, "there's something I need to tell you." He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" "I know I said no before," she swallowed hard, her eyes searching his face. "But I've been thinking about it a lot, and I can't stop thinking about you." The silence stretched between them, taut and electric. She could feel the tension coiling in the air, the unspoken question hanging heavy. "What are you saying, Amanda?" His voice was low, his gaze intense. I don't know," she replied, her voice trembling. "But I think I might have feelings for you." Mr. Peterson's expression softened, and he took a deep breath before speaking. "Amanda, I care about you deeply, more than I probably should as your teacher, but we can't do this." Her heart sank. "But why not?" she protested, desperation creeping into her voice. "We can keep it a secret. No one has to know." He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Because it's wrong. I'm your teacher, and you're my student. It's not appropriate, and it could ruin everything for both of us." The words hit her like a sledgehammer. He was right, of course. But the ache in her chest was palpable, the desire for his touch, his understanding, too powerful to ignore. "Please," she whispered. He leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. "If things were different, if you weren't my student," he paused, his voice heavy with regret. "But they're not. And we can't change that." Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I just needed to tell you." They sat there for a moment longer, the silence speaking volumes. Peterson took a step back, releasing her from his embrace. "Let's get you both to bed," he said firmly. "We'll figure out what to do tomorrow." Amanda followed him upstairs, her mind racing with thoughts and emotions. Despite his rejection, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of relief. He had heard her, understood her, and still offered them shelter. Perhaps that was all she really needed right now, a safe place to land. The following days were a blur of police reports, social workers, and school meetings. Mr. Peterson was there for every step, offering guidance and support. And though the physical attraction remained, the boundaries between them grew stronger, reinforced by the stark reality of their situation. As the weeks turned into months, Amanda and her mother slowly rebuilt their lives. The dark clouds of their past began to dissipate, and they found themselves standing in the light of a new day. The bond between Amanda and Mr. Peterson remained unshaken, though it had shifted to one of mutual respect and friendship. Their relationship was never the same after that night, but it was stronger for it. They had shared a moment of raw, unfiltered emotion, and while it had led to heartache, it had also led to healing. In the quiet moments when they were alone, Amanda would sometimes catch Mr. Peterson watching her, his eyes filled with a look that she couldn't quite decipher. But she knew he was there for her, and that was enough. As she walked across the stage at her graduation, her mother beaming with pride in the audience, she glanced back at him. Their relationship had transformed into something deeper than she had ever imagined, a bond that had been forged in the fire of pain and confusion. They had both learned the true meaning of sacrifice and the strength of unconditional support. As Amanda went off to college, she realized that Mr. Peterson had become a confidant, a mentor, and a beacon of hope in a world that had often seemed too cruel to bear. Though she knew she had lost a chance at something more, she cherished the friendship they had found. Years later, as she looked back on her tumultuous youth, she would think of Mr. Peterson with a bittersweet fondness. The love she had felt for him remained unrequited, a secret she had carried with her. But she knew that what they had shared was more profound than any romance could have been. Their paths had diverged, but their hearts remained connected by the invisible thread of shared experiences and the quiet understanding that had grown between them. And though she had moved on, she knew that she would never forget the kindness he had shown her in her darkest hour, the gentle way he had guided her through the storm. Their story was one of boundaries and sacrifice, of finding solace in the most unexpected places. It was a testament to the power of human connection and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And though it was not the tale of passion and love she had once dreamed of, it was a story of survival, growth, and the unbreakable bonds that can form in the face of adversity. Amanda had learned that sometimes the most important thing was not what you felt, but what you did with those feelings. And as she stood tall, ready to face the world, she knew that she had been shaped by the moments they had shared, forever changed by the quiet hero who had held her hand through the storm. In the years that followed, Amanda's mother never fully recovered from the abuse, but she managed to find a semblance of peace. Amanda, on the other hand, thrived in her newfound independence. She excelled in her studies, found a passion for social work, and vowed to help others who had suffered like she had. Mr. Peterson continued to teach, pouring his heart and soul into his students, though a part of him always wondered what might have been with Amanda. He watched her from afar, proud of the woman she had become, her resilience and intelligence, a constant reminder of the girl who had captured his heart. They remained in touch, exchanging emails and the occasional phone call. Amanda would visit him during her breaks from college, their conversations a mix of nostalgia and shared wisdom. He never mentioned the kiss, the unspoken love, but the warmth of their friendship was enough to keep the flame of his feelings at bay.